Those of you joining us online via our dedicated YouTube channel, CYBERUK Online. We have another great day ahead with an exciting lineup of speakers. Today's plenary sessions will be live streamed to you direct from us here at Manchester Central. These consist of both keynotes and panel sessions, and these will also be available to watch back on demand. In addition, we also have some specially selected content from some of our stream sessions. The full agenda can be seen on the CYBERUK website, and we'll also be putting up announcements throughout the day on our social channels to tell you what live stream sessions are coming up. And we welcome your interaction with the sessions, so if you have any comments, feedback, or want to reach out to others in the event community, please do so using the YouTube channel comments facility and connect with us on our other social media channels. Please, can I now ask you to ensure that your mobile devices are switched to silent as we're about to start. I hope you all have a very productive and enjoyable day. Thank you.
Welcome to Manchester. Welcome to CYBERUK 2025. Every day brings new challenges. Every decision defines tomorrow. Every action shapes our digital future. Every delegate, every organisation, every partner, everyone plays a vital role in securing us in cyberspace. We invite you to collaborate. We invite you to innovate. We invite you to lead as we pursue our shared goal: transforming resilience, countering threats. Welcome to CYBERUK 2025 in Manchester. Please give a very warm welcome to the NCSC's CEO, Richard Horn.
Welcome back, and welcome to the final day of CYBERUK 2025. I hope you enjoyed yesterday and made the most of the fantastic content. On behalf of us all, I'd like to give a massive thank you to all our sponsors and exhibitors who have made this conference possible, especially to our lead sponsors, Akamai and Google Cloud. We've got another day of brilliant speakers, insightful debate, inspiring presentations, and technical masterclasses lined up. I mentioned yesterday the need to change the way we think about cybersecurity. It's a contest. As Dara so brilliantly reinforced in his own inimitable style at the end of the day. It's why we need to focus on transforming our resilience and countering threats. I'm delighted to say that today we're announcing new cyber resilience test facilities and a new cyber adversary simulation scheme. Initiatives which will enhance the UK's online resilience, and you'll see more details coming out later this morning. And you may have seen that the UK government will adopt passkey technology for its digital services, bolstering the defences of our most critical systems at scale. But before we go into the first session of today, I'm sure you're aware that today is the 80th anniversary of VE Day, a day that recognises the sacrifice of those who have gone before us, marks our gratitude, and honours their legacy. We will be participating in a 2-minute national silence at midday to remember with appreciation and thankfulness those who fought for our freedom. Before I hand over to my colleague John Ellison to chair the international plenary, I'm first delighted to introduce Maureen Costello, Google Cloud's Vice President for the UK, Ireland, Sub-Saharan Africa, for our lead sponsor keynote. Maureen.
morning, everyone. I'm Maureen Costello, and I'm the Vice President for Google Cloud in the UK, Ireland, and Sub-Saharan Africa. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here this morning to help kick off Day 2 of Cyber UK 2025. Thank you to Richard and the NCSC team for inviting us to join you all here in Manchester this week. I want to start with the theme of this year's conference, Transforming Resilience, Countering Threats. I couldn't think of a better description of what we as Google Cloud are focused on, delivering in partnership with governments and customers around the world. Transforming resilience is at the heart of Google Cloud's promise, being part of a company that has 6 products with more than 2 billion users each. We have built our own network to withstand continual attack. Today, Google protects more people online than any other company in the world, from business users to governmental data to critical national infrastructure. We provide the same approach to security and resilience to our customers that we rely on for our own services. Our customers are clear that a top priority for moving to the cloud is to enhance their resilience through access to a secure global infrastructure with tools that protect and preserve their sovereignty. We continue to invest in building out a vast global network, now with more than 200 network edge locations, 42 cloud regions, and 33 subsea cables to offer true global resilience. This includes the UK's own Grace Hopper subsea cable connecting the UK to Spain and the US, and our forthcoming $1 billion UK data centre in Waltham Cross. Our global infrastructure is built on hardened security at every layer, from data centre to network to application. We have brought to market Google Sovereign Cloud, the industry's broadest portfolio of sovereign solutions, providing customers with wide choice on how to achieve resilience. Sovereign controls provide a strong data boundary on the public cloud, giving customers the ability to manage their data location and control access to their encryption keys. Google Distributed Cloud air-gapped meets the needs of customers with the most stringent sovereignty requirements, such as classified data and air-gapped infrastructure. Turning to the second part of the Cyber UK's theme this year, countering threats. We've entered a new era defined by increasingly sophisticated activity, a rapidly changing geopolitical landscape, and revolutionary new technologies like AI, which are redefining cyber operations for adversaries and defenders. Our recently published M-Trends report identified 737 new threat clusters, illustrating the scale of the growing threat we need to counter. Vulnerability exploits are still the dominant reason for intrusions, constituting around 1/3 of all attacks. And we saw that financially motivated threat actors are the most prevalent. We're also observing how threat actors are experimenting with AI to perform reconnaissance research, vulnerabilities, and automate malicious scripting. These techniques, while not yet translating into novel capabilities, are making our adversaries more productive. But we also know that AI offers a transformational benefit to cyber defenders. At Google Cloud, we are focused on offering our customers expanded capabilities and pushing technology boundaries to give cyber defense the upper hand. Take our acquisition of Mandiant in 2022. Our goal was to combine best-in-class frontline intelligence with Google's frontier technology and deep security experience gained from decades managing a global infrastructure. We recently launched Google Unified Security. This brings together threat intelligence, security operations platform capabilities, cloud security, the most trusted browser in Chrome Enterprise, and Mandiant expertise into one converged solution, powered by Gemini AI and running on Google's planet-scale infrastructure. Let me show you an example of how we are integrating these capabilities to enable our customers to defend more quickly and effectively. Let's roll the video.
So Dunelm is the UK market leader for homewares. We currently have 184 stores and a successful online presence. We've been going for 40 years now. The biggest challenge is the scale of the attacks and where they're coming from. It's sheer volume of information that we have to go through to actually find that one potential attacker or something that doesn't look right. And using the Google Cloud platform, we're ingesting millions of logs a day from various different sources, and the way we configured our systems, it gives us the view of what's critical, what's important to us, what we need to respond to straight away. Our time to respond incidents has decreased drastically. What's actually happened with our security strategies, having SecOps in place and having the mandiant response working hand in hand together, we've sort of created a risk profile that we can present to the board and give them comfort. We do have a cyber response team that are on hand if we need them. And the SecOps platform itself is giving us more security around posture, so we're actually using it to look for any breaches that we now get alerts on. So we've integrated our new SOC and we're using Mandiant as the assurance piece at the end, just to check everything's working. Working with the exec and the board, it has given them the confidence that if there was to be an incident, we can call on Mandiant, they're the experts. With Google Cloud, we can see more of the environment, know what's going on, and we have access to those logs ourselves. We have access to the platform ourselves, which we didn't have before. We know we're going to grow with Google Cloud, and we can't outgrow the platform. Dunelm is building a new way to deliver secure customer experiences.
Transforming resilience, countering threats. Jill's testimony perfectly captures how cloud technology is accelerating this mission. Whether you're a retailer serving your customers or a government department managing critical national infrastructure, this journey starts with a modern cloud platform. The scale of the challenge facing the UK government as they work to protect and build resilience across our critical national infrastructure has never been greater. As our most recent M-Trends analysis illustrates, government systems are in the top 5 most targeted segments. Google Cloud's first goal is to build a more secure foundation for the UK government. We appreciate the urgent need to reduce the UK's exposure to high-risk legacy systems. And whilst this is not a unique challenge to the government, with government systems under increasing attack, there is no greater technology priority in the UK. The complexities of modernisation at this scale are not to be downplayed. Legacy technology is often not well catalogued. There can be concerns about continuity during the migration and organisational barriers to work through. But at the other side of this complexity lies the opportunity for giant leaps, not steps, leaps forward. The promise of a globally resilient cloud infrastructure that provides the foundation for transforming cyber defence through AI makes this a journey worth taking. As we continue on this journey together, let me offer 3 guiding principles that will always be at the heart of Google Cloud's approach to partnership with you all. First, we must be bold. We must continue to advance how technology can improve our lives, and we must push the boundaries of what technology can offer us further. We'll soon have automated cyber defences at an even broader scale, with artificial intelligence stopping attacks before they reach users. And AI is just the latest frontier in the ongoing race between cyber adversaries and cyber defenders. It's our job to stay ahead. Secondly, we must ensure that we are responsible as we work tirelessly to secure and protect our most valuable assets, not least because the promise of digital transformation is being challenged by cybersecurity risks. We want to ensure that our customers are able to achieve their full digital potential. For this, we need to build trust that the latest technologies can be developed and deployed in ways that give customers control and choice over their data and infrastructure. Building trust cannot be done alone. We must work together, both here in the UK and with our international partners. So thirdly, collaboration is why flagship events like CYBERUK that connect the community and the wider industry, bringing leaders together to discuss and agree a way forward, are so crucially important. Our increasingly fragmented geopolitical environment makes it harder to align on technology progress, but it also makes alignment even more important and makes partnership essential. We're at a watershed moment that calls for us all to be bold, responsible, and collaborative. Technology in the era of AI can help secure our digital future while unlocking incredible opportunities, but only if we work together in a spirit of digital solidarity, ensuring that technology works for everyone. Thank you and enjoy the rest of day 2.
For the next panel, Transforming Resilience, Lessons from International Partners, please welcome the NCSC's Director for National Resilience, Jonathan Ellison, OBE.
Transforming resilience. That's the theme of this year's CyberUK. We talked a lot about how, as a community, we are working together to build the UK's resilience. Crucial steps to bolster our defences, as well as enhancing our ability to continue and recover on the occasions that attacks get through. A constant over the last 24 hours has been collaboration, how we need to work as a team at the heart of our approach. Domestically, of course, government, industry, regulators, academia, but internationally too. This is a global problem. It's a shared set of challenges with much we can learn and share with each other. I'm Jonathan Ellison. I'm the NCSC's National Resilience Director, and it's a huge privilege to chair this year's international panel, bringing together luminaries of the cybersecurity world to exchange lessons on what has worked, what hasn't, over the last year in international approaches to cyber resilience. Let me first introduce this wonderful panel, although most of you will know them all by now. Keiichi Ichikawa, who's the Deputy National Security Advisor of Japan. David Koh, who's the Chief Executive of the Singapore CSA, Cybersecurity Agency. Maria Adebar, the Cyber Director at the German MFA. And Anne-Keith Butler, Director of GCHQ, the organization of which NCSC is part. You're very welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Over the next hour, we're going to explore a little bit about lessons from the year just gone, about how we need to collaborate internationally, how we can learn from each other about a whole-of-society approach, and how we might tackle threats of the future as well. But I thought I would start this panel by looking back. So reflecting on the last year, looking to each of the panel members to maybe share one thing, one moment, a success or a challenge that each nation faced over the year and how that influenced your cybersecurity posture, your cybersecurity resilience. David, can I turn to you first to offer your reflections from Singapore?
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And thank you to the GCHQ and NCSC for having me here in exciting Manchester. It's great to be back at CyberUK. Looking back the past year, I guess the thing that most sticks in my head is CrowdStrike. I remember it happened on a Friday. It always seems to happen on a Friday. And in the morning, we started getting reports. Coincidentally, in Singapore, there was also an Azure cloud outage. So it wasn't clear to us whether it was CrowdStrike causing the cloud outage or the cloud outage causing CrowdStrike, or they were actually independent events. By about noon, it became quite clear that it was a CrowdStrike issue. And firstly, it wasn't cybersecurity. And what was the root cause was, what is that technical term for it? A cock-up. So I remember discussing with my team that clearly this is not a cybersecurity incident. And I remember thinking to myself, someone would have a very difficult weekend. So I went on with the rest of my day. And shortly after lunch, I got a phone call. My cell phone rang, and it was our senior minister, coordinating minister for national security, our CDL equivalent. Just to be sure, he doesn't normally call me on my cell phone. And it was like, David, what is going on? Do you know what is going on? So I was like, oh, okay, yes, sir. We've got this incident going on, and 2 of our CIIs have been affected, minor CIIs in the banking and finance sector. Airport, there's some queues, not because CII has been affected, but some of the airline reservation systems are down. and some queues are affected. The Civil Aviation Authority is on top of things. And then anecdotally, we also know that car parks are affected, etc. So he said, okay, so can I confirm that it is not a cyber attack? No, sir, it's not a cyber attack. Secondly, is Singapore being attacked? I said, no, it's happening all over the world. He said, okay. Then he said, I'll leave you to get on top of things. But I think it'll be useful if the public gets a message and they are reassured on the situation. So I put down the phone and I look at myself, I guess. I thought to myself, I guess he thinks I'm in charge. So to cut a long story short, I had to activate my operational team, and to their credit, they got on top of things very quickly. We issued an internal spot report to the seniors, including the Prime Minister, within an hour and a half. And then subsequently, across the night, 2 more reports, technical advisories, and of course, a media statement. What it caused was a deep reflection on our part that our job was not just cybersecurity, but ultimately it's resilience. And to the public, they don't know the reason things go down. We are increasingly dependent on the digital way of life. It's how we live, how we work, how we play. May not be a case where we're totally dependent, but increasingly dependent. And obviously, when it goes down, there's an effect, an impact on our economy, on businesses, in some cases, essential services. Whether it goes down because of a cyber incident, because of a technical outage, or an electricity or water shortage or whatever, actually to the public, the effect is the same. And it will take us a while to determine this. So consequently, in Singapore, have been a review, and my agency now, congratulations, we are now also looking after resilience. And the reason is because we have already got established processes with most sectors, definitely the essential services. It's just an extension of a little bit more. And just to extend the reporting when there are outages, even though they are not directly cyber incidents, because it does impact the public. So I think this has been the major reflection for myself and my agency in the last 1 year.
Thank you, David. And that plays very much into yesterday's theme about continue and recover that Richard covered in his opening plenary. Anne, can I come to you next?
Thanks, John. I mean, I could equally well have picked this CrowdStrike example with a whole load that resonates there, David, about, for a cyber organisation, a moment that isn't cyber defining your year. But I'm not going to. I think the thing for us in 2024 particularly was an election. 24 was the year of elections internationally, wasn't it? And so for us, two themes in that, John. First, preparing for a secure election, and fantastic work from your teams and others to make sure that was as secure as possible, and lots of sort of anxiety about particularly disinformation and the potential for that. So that felt a success in itself. But then actually the bigger, longer term sort of opportunity and challenge is welcoming a new set of ministers who, when they were last in power, cyber wasn't really a thing. So they bring lots of memory and experience of having run the UK and thought about national security in a sort of CT context and in a defence. They had lots of bright ideas about defence, but the actual cyber resilience, increasing dependence of society on cyber was something really new to our incoming government. And so working with them, under Felicity and now Richard, to really brief ministers and senior officials on something that isn't new to us but is new to them, that has been has made us, I think, all think through how do we do that. We might touch on sort of exciting legislation that they're going to bring in, but how do we get this onto an agenda when it wasn't there before, and work with DCIT as a emerging department to really drive the UK's digital ambition. So that for me has been a successful year. Credit a lot to you, John, and your teams, not just because you're on the panel. I'm hoping for easy questions later. But I think a moment of sort of pausing and thinking, what are we for? Who's in charge of what? What do they need to succeed? So that would be my reflection.
Thank you very much, Anne. Keiichi, can I go to you next?
Well, thank you very much. I'm very delighted to be joining this prestigious Cyber UK. It's the second year in a row. And in that sense, thank you very much for inviting me, GCHQ and NCSC, and about supporting people. And with regard to your question, in recent years in Japan, we have been increasingly alerted by the cyber attack against both public and private sectors, in particular against critical infrastructure. And furthermore, we are increasingly concerned with the state-sponsored cyber attacks, especially with a link to China and North Korea. And let me show you a little bit about two cases which took place last year. The first one in North Korea. And it may not be so mentioned here in Europe, but North Korea has intensified malicious cyber activities to finance its own nuclear and missile development. By the way, last night, after a very fantastic dinner together with my colleagues, when I was going to bed, the one email came to me telling me North Korea fired once again the missile against the Sea of Japan. But they were putting aside their very provocative action of launching missiles. They are continuously engaged in cyber malicious activities. And in May last year, more than 300 million US dollars in cryptocurrency was stolen from the Japan-based crypto asset company, which is called DMM. After the intensified investigation, last December, both FBI and National Police Agency of Japan and others issued a joint announcement that it was committed by Trade Trader. Trade Trader is one of the wings belong to a North Korean notorious hacker group. And secondly, we'd like to touch upon MiraFace. And MiraFace, which may not be familiar here in Europe, is a cyber threat group with suspected Chinese involvement. Their cyber group have become rampant in Japan and other Asian countries, and they have conducted the espionage campaign, taking advantage of vulnerabilities of digital infrastructure against government institutions, businesses, think tanks, etc., to steal the information related to national security and advanced technologies. And of course, we are very alerted by the Bo typhoon, the Seoul typhoon, after US and other countries voiced their concerns about their threats against critical infrastructure as well as the espionage activities. So in Japan, we have increasingly aware that we needed to enhance our cyber capability in order to protect and defend our digital network by taking a whole government or whole societal approach. We have been working, since then we have been working on to increase our cyber capability, including introducing a so-called active cyber defense bill. By the way, the bill is now under discussion. It is under discussion in the upper house, and probably we are expecting the bill is to be approved soon, very soon. And I think this active cyber defense bill, once approved, will provide a very solid foundation for us to further cooperation with the private sectors as well as partners, like-minded countries. So we are looking forward to have more cooperation with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keiichi. And Maria, can I come to you?
Thank you, good morning. So I'm the European diplomatic perspective, I guess, on this panel, and glad to be here since we have a new government as of yesterday. So for me, during the last year, the most impressive thing was to see how the international side, the foreign policy, the foreign security policy side of what you are talking resilience of your cyber landscape is evolving, how fast it's evolving, and how fast and intensive international collaboration is growing in that field. Germany's part to that all were two attributions. Japan, Keiichi, you just talked about those very issues. Last year, Germany attributed publicly 2 major cyber attacks and incidents. First, in our Federal Office on Geodesy and Cartography. This is the agency doing all information sharing also for our military parts in the government. And another attribution on because of an attack on the headquarters of the German Social Democratic Party. And we're also talking elections, had a major attribution for a disinformation campaign. 2 of those attributions went to Russia, 1 to China. Those malign actors, you mentioned it, you already know here in the room. And with that responsibility deriving of our national security strategy to, if Germany sees something, it says something. We hope to internationally grow resilience, grow solidarity, and grow the spirit of working together against everyone who wants to damage our economies on the criminal side, or maybe state-sponsored side, or political side. This goes well also for the EU, where we increasingly use cyber toolbox and hybrid toolboxes, talking about sanctions, talking about solidarity statements, and it goes for capacity building with African states, with the Western Balkans, and also for Germany, a special region, is those cordons sanitaires around Russia, like Moldova, Georgia, and those countries. So all in all, these major developments making cyber resilience and cyber security a top priority for all our countries in Europe and in the world is really, the one thing I would mention here on this question.
Thank you. I mean, there's so much in what the 4 of you just said about real-world impacts, around public-private partnerships, around the legislation piece, whether in the UK or in Japan, that we could dive into. I think where I might go first, David, is just to pick up on what you were talking about. One of the things we talked a lot over the last 24 hours is concrete steps to actually raise resilience rather than just talking about it. So I'm interested whether or not it's the CrowdStrike example or in the vast amount of other stuff the CSA have been up to. How do you know what you're doing is effective in raising resilience of Singapore, and how do you measure effectiveness in terms of resilience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this is one of the big challenges that all of us face, whether you're a CISO in a private company or if you like a national CISO. We're always arguing for more budget to implement better, raise the standard, etc. And the big question is whether we're effective. I think the real challenge is in my view, we will never really know. I do tell our Ministry of Finance that, we've had another year and there have been no major incidents, so well done. We've been effective. Unfortunately, they don't quite buy this, and I'm not sure if your own boards buy this, but this is a challenge. What we have done instead is that I think, have started to look at process KPIs, as it were. So, for example, when we are trying to roll out better cyber hygiene, we have a similar system into the UK. We have a cyber essentials system domestically, as well as a cyber trust mark, which is a slightly higher level of cyber hygiene measures, which small and medium enterprises can take up. So one of the measures of effectiveness which we are looking at is the take-up rates for cyber essentials and cyber trust marks. And we are even thinking of requiring them as a basic requirement if you wish to participate in a government tender, using government's access as a buyer to influence behavior. So these are some of the concrete measures, I think, in terms of how we can measure effectiveness. It's not so straightforward.
No, not at all. I think, well, so Anne, we were at RSA last week in California, and you were talking a lot there about international partnership, international collaboration. How do you see those principles shaping our approach in the UK and how we've been working and need to work in terms of building resilience of both our own country and supporting kind of global resilience?
Really good question, John. I mean, the theme I took from RSA, which is really prevalent here as well, over the last couple of days in Manchester, is one of community, of one of people, whether they are CISOs in private industry or government officials or cybersecurity professionals or vendors, designing the next generation of products, is if we are a community working together, tapping into the best of academic research, thinking about that internationally, we stand a much better chance of success. And I think that is really relevant in the measures of effectiveness too, point that David made, because if we are measuring that within government, and only within government, we measure against checklists. And we heard a little bit of challenge from Ollie that checklists are, they're helpful, they're reassuring for everybody in the ecosystem, not just the good guys. And so how do we work together to use insights that industry might have of, if you do cyber essentials, does it make a difference? And actually, working together, we can start to measure in the UK that it does. And similarly, things like ransomware, where together we can look at, if you've employed multi-factor authentication, you are 60%. 60% of the current ransomware attacks would not happen if that had been in place. So for me, there is that community that it can't be government alone, it can't be industry alone, it can't be individuals alone. We've got to bring that all together and to do that internationally, because we're just stronger together when we can attribute together, when we can call out together. We heard about how Salt Typhoon being called out in one place helps others build their resilience. So those are the themes I really took from RSA, and I see them, in spades here as I walk around.
And of course, the companies we work with are international companies. The supply chains, of course, are global as well. So I think that plays neatly into why we need to collaborate internationally as well as with industry. I think if maybe we delve slightly more into that sense of community, the working with industry, the partnerships. And Keiichi, perhaps I can come to you to talk a bit about the work going on in Japan around enhancing collaboration and resilience in your work with the private sector in terms of how you focus on raising your resilience, and also any lessons then we can take in the UK or more broadly about that collaboration that you have with your private sector in Japan.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. That is always a challenge, how to build the trust and a corporate relationship with private sectors. But I think that the important point is how to create a situation in which both private and public sectors have a shared goal to build and maintain a resilient, trusted, and sustainable their digital infrastructure. And in terms of that, let me touch upon two approaches we are now embarking on. The first is mandatory reporting system. I think many countries have adopted such kind of a mandatory reporting system, but our active cyber defense bill includes the mandatory reporting system, which requires affected company to report incident to the government. But the reporting system sometimes has become a burden for private sectors. But we need to incentivize them to report the incident to the government more forthcomingly. So the government needs to do more by providing the related information or threat analysis and technical assistance if necessary. And also reporting format is really important. And sometimes private sectors are often required to make a different reporting to multiple agencies, such as police, or cyber agencies, or regulatory ministries, etc., using a different format. So affected companies are really busy in order to reporting. So to alleviate such burden, in Japan, we are thinking about creating a single common streamlined format for reporting system. I think that will help to create the collaborative relationship with private sectors. And another thing, which is another initiative we are taking is called Japan CyberStar. Japan CyberStar, which is a scheme that Japanese government has launched this spring. This is a voluntary cybersecurity labeling system for IoT devices. And Japanese government established a security standard for IoT devices from level 1 to 4. And level 1 is a minimum standard that all the IoT devices need to clear. From level 2 to 4 are to be established according to the categories of the IoT devices. And this is not regulation. This is a voluntary scheme for private sectors. But we think this scheme will incentivize private sectors to be certified in relation with government procurement, in which certification will be required. So in addition to the regulatory approach, the government needs to come up with the variety of approaches, which is more conciliatory and friendly for the private sectors to create more collaborative relationship with the private sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that conversation about incentivization clearly has been a hot topic over Cyber UK over the last day or so as well, and I think a very live conversation in a lot of nations, that balance between regulation and different ways you incentivize voluntary behavior. Maria, I saw you nodding away when we were talking about mandatory reporting at the start. Did you want to kind of come in from a German or EU perspective?
Yeah, the EU perspective, who already has heard of NIS2, the directive? Probably yes. So just to give you an update what that means for Germany in terms of reporting transparency efforts. We are not quite on time, but working hard to implement the NIS2 directive in Germany, as other countries in Europe struggle a little bit as well, but we get there. And the biggest changes for us are the scope of application and the increase of scope and application and the introduction of the so-called size cap rule. So far, and we will have an estimated increase of 650% of reporting. So far, 4,500 German companies are obliged to reporting and transparency obligations, and we expect that number to go up to 29,000. So this is quite a big challenge that requires a lot of changes in various laws and domestic procedures and so on and so forth. It's a big effort. And the size cap rule will say that basically every company with an annual turnover of more than 50 million and 50 employees will be required to reporting and transparency in the various stages. So this is something that shows, and we have a new penalty system established with that shows the role of the governments, that they are customers, regulator, and enforcer at the same time. And this only will work with a whole of government approach and a whole of society approach, and a lot of public-private partnerships. And this is really an example where we all together enhance our resilience, our security. It's a little bit of the burden, but it's a step up, and it also shows that cybersecurity is at the very essence of national security and the critical infrastructure security of our countries. And yeah, that's just as an update to that. And as a whole of government approach, I must say this is also very much with our Ministry of Interior. I'm from the Foreign Office, but we're sitting here as a German government.
Thank you very much. And obviously you get to travel the world lots in your role. You hear from lots of partners, these folk, but beyond in the Five Eyes and elsewhere. What lessons do you bring back from those conversations, and how do you see them integrating within our UK approach, our UK strategy, and particularly with an eye on that kind of whole of society approach to cyber?
I mean, that whole of society approach is a really good lesson, and learning from different countries, whether it's in Europe or the Far East or over in North America or elsewhere. What works and how to bring that back here is really powerful. And as you say, a lot of the companies that we're working with are international too. So looking at how do we make it as straightforward to do business with government, so that the rules, I mean, rules are always going to be slightly different in different nations, aren't they? Different nations have to set their own priorities. I often hear from industry partners, it would be great if you could all have one set of rules. I mean, that is not going to happen. And so I think it is better to put the effort, as you said earlier, actually on what's our shared outcome and how do we build that together, and then learning internationally what works and bringing that back, really powerful. So.
Thank you. We touched on legislation a couple of times over the course of the conversation so far. So maybe we can turn the conversation away from those kind of voluntary things about where we're working or how we work to the kind of legislative approach that governments can take. We've got 4 governments on stage today. Katie, if I can perhaps come to you first. You talked a little bit earlier about the active cyber defense bill progressing through your legislature in Japan. If you give us maybe a bit of an overview about what you're seeking to achieve with that, so we can think about what lessons we can learn from that kind of process.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Well, this is something related to taking a whole societal approach. And in order to make it possible, we need to have very powerful authority to play a coordinating role in relation with the cybersecurity. Based on such, a basic perspective, we are now working on the active cyber defense bill, which consisted of 3 pillars. The first, fundamentally enhancing public-private partnerships. Second, to utilize the communication data to detect cyber attack against Japan. And thirdly, the national police as well as self-defense forces will be authorized to make a remote access to, as well as a neutralize abuse servers. And in addition, we are thinking about transforming existing cybersecurity center, which is called NISC, into a completely different, different powerful institutions with more authority, with more people and budget, which will be led by our cabinet cyber director. And it will be a pivot to coordinate not only within the government but also with private sectors. Also, it will take an initiative to make a strategic level of cybersecurity policy, and also it will play a pivotal role in relation with enhancing the international cooperation with partner countries. And when it comes to remote access and the neutralization measures, as I said, the police and the defense are the primary institutions to exercise. But the new organization, which is transformed completely from the existing institution, will play an important role. By the way, this new institution will be placed in a cabinet secretariat. So in that sense, the new institution, by being placed in a cabinet institution, we are expecting that that institution will have a powerful coordinating role. And so that institution will coordinate the operations conducted by police and defense agency with a close coordination with National Security Secretariat, where I'm working of, so that cybersecurity strategy, policy, and operation will be carried out according to national security strategy as a whole. So that is the basic concept we are working on.
Thank you. Anne, perhaps you mentioned earlier on the Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill. Just a perspective from you about how you see that increasing the UK's cybersecurity.
Absolutely, John. I know not everyone gets out of bed for new legislation or gets really excited by it, so I'll be brief. But I mean, for me, this is a really important piece of legislation, and it brings out some of that sort of community thing that I've talked about before, because it is being co-created. And again, I know you and the team in NCSC have had a very strong voice in helping other policymakers bring in ideas and thought industry too about how do we legislate, what's the right legislation to lift our resilience up a notch. And we know through the Telecom Security Act that legislation can make a difference. It's definitely the regulations, the rules, the standards we impose through that piece of legislation have raised the bar in the UK and offered us some defence against things like Salt Typhoon. So this next piece of legislation is to take that defence a notch higher. The thing I think is really important, though, is you're never going to do it through legislation alone. So, we heard yesterday from the technical panel and Ollie, again, powerfully about market incentivisation. How do we hardwire cybersecurity into the AI thinking that we're doing? We're doing a lot of work with AC and others to make sure that we've got the government piece of that right, but we need to be working with private sector to get that piece right. How are we getting standards and security by design, really clear, not just because the law says you have to, but because it's the right thing to do, because the market is incentivized. And so for me, doing all of that together alongside international partners so that, we attribute together, we call out the bad stuff together, and we build those standards and security together alongside important legislation. I mean, you need the whole mix to raise resilience, which is, of course, what we're trying to get after in our conversations here.
And then that balance, again, how we get it right. I mean, it's not just about regulation legislation. David, that's something, obviously, in Singapore, you've had a lot of experience with as well. Do you want to just reflect on that and lessons we can take as we think about it in the UK?
Right. Thank you, Jonathan. Firstly, I'd say that everything that my fellow panelists have said really resonates with me. I think that we have had experience. We've had Cybersecurity Act since 2018, and we just amended it. So it's fairly unusual in the Singapore system to have an act and then less than 5 years later have a major amendment to the act. And the reason is because the pace of technological change and as well as the pace of the threat has impacted so significantly that there was a need for a major amendment to the Act. Just to give you one particular example, when the original Act was written, cloud was not a thing. So the wording of the Act was really for on-prem physical systems. And so we had a deliberation whether we could interpret the Act to take into account cloud, remote access systems, etc. It was decided that we will rewrite it so that we would account for this. Just one example. Now, regulations, laws, in my view, are needed, but they set a baseline. There is an unintended consequence, and that is that sometimes because you set that baseline, then companies, enterprises then meet that basic baseline alone and don't go beyond that. And I think that is a problem. So one example which we've had to adjust from was that we were perhaps too clinical. We were heavily focused on critical infrastructure. And we even defined it down to the systems in a critical enterprise. So for example, if you were the telecoms company, these systems were critical infrastructure. There were requirements, there were audits, we tested them, and there was an obligation for reporting. But the non-critical systems, the HR systems, the websites, etc., the corporate networks were not deemed to be critical infrastructure, and hence there were no obligations. We thought it was a good idea because we didn't want to have too heavy a burden on the critical infrastructure. 70% of our critical infrastructure are private companies. You are listed companies, you have a business to run. We didn't want too heavy a regulatory burden. But unfortunately, we realized that there were incidents that were taking place in the corporate networks, which were not critical infrastructure. And we only found out about it much later. And when we asked the critical infrastructure, then they said, like, oh, we weren't obligated to report to you. So I think that our realization is that this doesn't work. And the reason is because the threat actor doesn't know how we've divided the system. They're just coming in, and typically they're looking for the weakest link, which could be the website, which could be the corporate HR systems, etc. And they will come in and then tunnel through to the real critical infrastructure. So we've had to change, and I've had meetings with CEOs and board chairmen to tell them that we have to change our mindset, and precisely to move it away from a regulator-regulatee mindset to one of partnership. We are on the same side. The bad guys are out there, and we have to understand this. So please, voluntarily report to us. We will lean forward and assist you when there are incidents, etc. And it's been a long slog to try to shift that mindset, because I think companies are instinctively trained, and perhaps the lawyers are guiding them that these are the regulatory requirements and this is what you're obligated to do, and the rest you don't need to. it then becomes interpreted as, since I don't need to, then we won't. And I think that's detrimental to the companies, that's detrimental to the government, and that's detrimental to national security. I like also the idea of co-creation and partnership. I think one of the additional amendments we have made is to move away from a binary system, critical national infrastructure and the rest. Recognizing that there is a group that perhaps is important, not quite critical, and in our context, we rationalize it at its what we call foundational digital infrastructure. So things like cloud service providers, data centers, they support large swaths of the economy, small and medium enterprises, etc. We haven't deemed them as critical national infrastructure, but when a cloud service provider goes down or a data center goes down, there's a significant impact, so we want to know. And in the past, when we call them, then they say like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't tell you. We have NDAs with our customers, and you're not one of our customers. It was not a happy situation for us to be in. So we've decided that we should have some kind of basic reporting obligation for cloud service providers and data centers. But on Anne's point, then the idea is that we don't want them to have multiple different reporting standards. So we are trying to co-create the standards with them. I said, you know how to run your business. We are quite happy to use your reporting standards and then let industry recommend it to us and we will adopt it. And even to the extent of what constitutes a major incident, they have definitions for it. We are quite happy to adopt it. I think the whole idea is to try to have some kind of regulatory harmonization so that big companies who are in many different jurisdictions don't have to deal with so many different ideas. The last point I'll make is this. I think we also need to shift our mindset away that cyber is doom and gloom and its obligations. I think the idea is to also, there is a potential for cyber to be a positive differentiator. Singapore also has implemented a voluntary IoT labeling scheme. We've had it for a couple of years, and to my surprise, we've had 700 companies' devices being voluntarily submitted for labeling in Singapore. Now, it was a bit of a thought experiment when we did this. We thought that if we build it, they will come. And to my surprise, they have. And the 700 devices, I'm very sure, are not targeted at the vast Singapore market. We're a tiny market. Why are they coming here? We believe that they see it as an opportunity to differentiate themselves from their competitors. When they have like 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, it's better than their competitor. And it's not just in the Singapore market. A lot of the e-commerce platforms serve the whole of Southeast Asia. So although the other neighboring countries don't have the same, don't require and don't recognize the labeling scheme, Singapore, I guess, is a bit of a trust mark. And if someone is trying to buy this device, a home router from the Philippines or Malaysia, they see that it's been recognized as a 3-star product in the Singapore market, then it perhaps is a differentiator. So the message that I want to give to all of you is that you can also potentially see cybersecurity as a market differentiator for yourselves. And whether it's Cyber Essentials, Cyber Trust Mark in Singapore, or this labeling scheme, these are opportunities for you to differentiate yourself and see cybersecurity not just as a drag, but as something that's potentially positive for the business.
I think there are definitely lessons we can learn there as we think about market incentives in the UK. And I liked how you characterized earlier on about, we are on the same side, and that plays very much into what Richard was talking about this morning in terms of the contest we find ourselves in, and we are all on the same side of that contest. Maria, can I come to you? You talked about NIS2 slightly earlier on, but obviously, clearly, that's the other big piece of legislation this year. Is there anything you would reflect on about lessons learned that we can think about and absorb? Obviously, there's a lot of similarities with the Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill in NIS2. What would the lessons be that you would reflect back to the UK and beyond?
Maybe a little bit early to draw lessons, and we have the EU AI Act as well in the implementation. But I think what you can already learn from this is the importance of cybersecurity and resilience to our economies, and that we need a whole of government and societal approach to implement those measures. And sure, you will have everywhere there are discussions on how far-reaching, on how deep, and who, and where, and when, and deadlines, and penalties. We should share information on all of this. But at the very end, we're all raising the bar and the level of our security and resilience, and this is the most important thing. One other aspect as to Germany, to give you an update, we have a new government and we have a new coalition treaty. And for the first time in history, Germany will have a Ministry of Digital Affairs, which will also take the lead on the implementation on the EU AI Act. And we are shifting a little bit competencies between the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Infrastructure to the Digital Affairs Ministry. But that also shows the importance that this new government attaches all those digitalization and cybersecurity efforts. That's one. And for the first time in history, Germany will have a National Security Council. Maybe to all of your countries, no news, but we didn't have one. And we're now joining the club. And obviously, cyber being an integral part of national security. So there's more to come also on that front, and stepping up Germany's exposure stance and involvement on the EU level. On NATO, we didn't talk about NATO, but there's a lot of things also. We're talking hybrid attacks. We didn't mention the word hybrid cyber as a part of talking undersea cables. You see, hybrid attacks as a whole and being a big chunk also cyber. So all those foreign area, Germany will be an active partner through also to new entities.
Thank you. It does really feel like the conversation has moved on 1 year on from where we were last year at CyberUK, and certainly the conversation has talked a lot over the last day or two about concrete steps, not just on this panel, but on previous panels too. So I guess looking to the future, I'm going to come to each of you just for one key message. If you think about those kind of concrete steps and takeaways, lessons that you want everybody here and watching on the live stream to kind of take away, what would they be? And we'll come back to them in 12 months' time, hopefully, and reflect on them. But I might start, Keiichi, with you at the end, and we'll work backwards.
Well, thank you very much. The discussion that we have today is really eye-opening, even for me, and especially I echo all the argument my colleagues are making, and especially I'm very impressed with David's comment of that we need to do more beyond the regulatory approach, right? We need to make cyber security more positive in the context of market and the businesses. That's really important. So in that sense, and also this is something which echoes with my basic perspective. And what I want to stress is that mainstreaming cybersecurity at every single level. I think that is really, it is really vital. And cybersecurity is really crucial nowadays and in the future, regardless about private or public, regardless positions or titles, regardless which countries where you are. So in that sense, mainstreaming cybersecurity needed to be promoted by every possible effort. That's my message. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keiichi. David?
I think my key message is partnerships. Not just partnership between industry and government, with academia as well, research, and across governments. Change our mindsets away from one of regulations, from the regulator-regulatee relationship, the obligations that you have. Recognize that it is a partnership. We are on the same side. It's often said that cybersecurity is a team sport, and we are on the same team, and the bad guys are out there. I'll go further. I say cybersecurity is an international team sport.
Thank you. Maria?
Reflecting this discussion, it boils down to this very truth on the international level that cyberspace is borderless, and nobody is secure until everybody is secure. And attacks occur far away, but concern us all. We talked about a lot of incidents. So mainstreaming, holistic approach, international solidarity, and advancing international norms on well-behavior in cyberspace. And bringing those international collaboration to another level is one part that I feel very important in this discussion.
The challenge with going last, John, is that everyone else has said what I was going to say. So
I was giving you time.
Yeah, that's the plus side, is you've got plenty of time to think as all your ideas disappear in front of you. I mean, the thing I would say to this audience is, you've heard in this discussion, and you know because it is your day job, that this really, really matters. It matters for our national security, on a day where we're reflecting 80 years of the end of the Second World War. Together, that took partnerships, that took a holistic approach. That there is something for me, really powerful for everyone in this room to feel you are part of that international team, doing something that really matters, that has, brings billions to the economy, keeps other companies safe, is thickening the supply chain, is enabling our citizens to go about living their lives in the way that they want to, and is part of making sure that the technologies of the future have security designed in. So be really proud of what you're doing and keep doing it. I mean, that would be the takeaway from me, John.
Thank you very much indeed. I think that's hopefully been a fascinating conversation and plays into so many of the themes across Cyber UK, in particular market incentives, getting that balance right, regulation with other incentives, partnership that we've heard from across the panel. And I hopefully leave this conversation with a sense of optimism. I hope everybody else does as well, that there are concrete steps that we can take, that we are taking. So thank you to everybody who's tuned in on the live stream. Thank you to everybody in the room. But can I please ask you all to just join me in thanking the wonderful panel for their contribution today.
Please scan the QR code to evaluate this session. There will now be a networking break in the exhibition in Central Hall. We'll reconvene back here this afternoon at 15:40.